Yeah, I think most people have an idea, but probably choose to be a little bit blind to it.
Mm.
It's a big part of our culture, alcohol. I mean, it's up there per gram with fat in terms of the amount of kilojoules or calories it contains per gram. It's also absorbed differently. It actually goes straight through the stomach, whereas the other nutrients are absorbed, further down the digestive tract. So it can be a problem for that. But I mean, where alcohol beyond the calories, where alcohol is a problem is how it affects the absorption and digestion of certain nutrients.
What does it do?
So if you've got more than what we call a moderate alcohol intake, and alcohol does have benefits in smaller portions, but more than what they consider moderate, which is your two standard drinks. So that's a standard drink is like a mid-strength stubby or a 100 ml glass of wine. So if you're having much more than that on a regular basis, it actually affects the lining of your stomach and your intestines, and then you absorb foods differently, so you can be deficient in a lot of your fat-soluble vitamins. It affects a lot of your B vitamins. So to metabolise alcohol, we use quite a lot of thiamine, and a lot of people aren't achieving their B vitamins on a regular intake, so that we see that as a bit of a problem. And a lot of the problems you see with alcoholics is where they might have poor coordination or a little bit incoherent. Beyond obviously the effect of alcohol, that's a lot to do with your lack of B vitamins.
Well, apart from that, you did mention, and I'm sure lots of people will have grasped onto it, that in small amounts, alcohol can have some benefits. What are they?
Yeah, so I'll state again at the start, this is purely in moderation,
Yes.
and it is that fine line, but it can increase the good cholesterol in our blood. It can also improve our insulin sensitivity, so decrease our risk of type 2 diabetes. There's studies that will show that alcohol actually improves sleep in moderation. And interestingly, one study I've come across in the past said that people who drink in moderation are more likely to exercise. It prevents clotting factors, so for people that are at risk of stroke, that's not a bad thing. And then, it's a good stress reliever. If you've had a tough day, you come home and have, one beer or, a glass of wine, then that can actually be quite beneficial, because stress in itself is quite toxic to the body.
So it doesn't matter what type of alcohol?
The best in terms of what they provide nutrition-wise would be your red wines, because they've got quite a high polyphenol content, so like an antioxidant content. I'm not sure if we've talked about it before. There's an area around the world where they talk about blue zones. These are concentrations of people that live to 100. One of those groups in Sardinia, they drink a red wine that's got 3 times the polyphenol content of any other wine in the world, and part of their longevity, they think, is related to that wine.
So red wine, what's next on the list if you were to look at it that way?
Look, in terms of polyphenol, like antioxidant activity, beyond red wine, like it's that dark tannin colour that you're looking for. Like when in the white wines, that polyphenol content's removed, and then same with beer. There's not really a lot of benefit in terms of polyphenols. It's just that small moderation impact on things like blood clotting. It's the actual impact of the alcohol that we see the benefit.
Okay, so no more than 1 or at most 2 a day.
It's 2 standard drinks, yeah. So for men and women, we're equal now. They recommend no more than 2 standard drinks a day. The guidelines don't specify, but the general consensus is that we should aim for 2 alcohol-free days a week. And part of the reason for that is like an excessive amount of alcohol. Part of the breakdown of that alcohol, it produces something called acetaldehyde, which is quite carcinogenic, and it causes inflammation in the liver. And in excess, the liver starts to scar. So at excessive amounts, if you're drinking much more than the recommended 2 a day, and you're doing that consecutively, then the liver will scar. And I mean, in my opinion, the liver's more important than the heart. In terms of what it actually does in the body, it doesn't probably perform quite as many functions as the brain, but it's certainly next in line, and you couldn't live without it. So it'll perform. If it is scarring, it'll perform until there's about 15% function left, and then beyond that, there's little hope for you, unfortunately.
Okay, so stick to your limits, basically, is the message there, and it's okay to have 1 a day, but no more than that, really.
Yeah, that's right. No more than that. There is actually, there's one study I looked at a couple of years ago. I think I was trying to justify alcohol to myself, but it was showing that your longevity, your risk of dying prematurely was actually slightly increased if you weren't drinking at all compared to those that only drunk in moderation, and that was the fine line. Now, I know that study is actually, there's been a little bit of debate because they were comparing people that that had given up drinking in older age, so they were comparing, like their lifestyle habits before that. But, the key point is, yes, you can have a little bit of alcohol, just make sure it's not excessive.
And included in your kilojoule intake for the day.
Absolutely, yeah. So the standard glass of wine is, 400 to 500 kilojoules. Now, that's 100 mils. So when someone tells me they have a glass a night, I always then ask them, okay, how often do you buy a bottle? How long would a bottle last you? Because the average bottle's about 700 mils. So you would want that bottle to be lasting you 7 glasses if you are having that 100 mil. So a lot of your wine glasses are more than likely 150, 200 mil that people are putting in. So if you like a bigger glass of wine, then probably stick to 1 per night.
Absolutely, because 100 mils is less than half a cup. That's not
right.
a lot.
No, it's not.
You'd be wanting to sip that very, very carefully.
Absolutely.